Here we are. JLR Investigates. Magnolia's in the house.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Matthew Perry case. Me and Magnolia are paying attention to this case, and there's some reports going on about possible suspects or people that were interviewed by police, because we discussed the other day, we're continuing coverage on the Matthew Perry case, but we discussed that there's going to most likely be charges coming up. Correct?
Yes.
That's
Pending
what,
charges.
charges. And the new reports, like lots of publications are reporting that Charlie Sheen's ex, his ex, Brooke Mueller was questioned.
Mm-hmm.
What's up with that?
Yeah, we found out a lot of information today came out. So basically, it's kind of been confirmed that the criminal investigation was started in May, and they've spoken to several people that know Matthew Perry. One of them is Brooke Mueller. So apparently they had met in a rehab at one point and they were in communication. And what we sort of knew already was that they were looking into how he was getting the drugs, because we knew that his prescribed treatment that he was going to had been a week and a half before. And yet somehow he had a really high level of ketamine in his system. So they've been trying to figure out how that could be, and where he was getting it from. So it sounds like they have the DEA involved, the LAPD, and the USPS. So that kind of tells us that we are looking at wire fraud charges.
Packages being sent via the mail.
Yes.
That's what it seems like. So that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Then it goes into the ketamine. Was it pills? Is there ketamine pills out there, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah. Well, it seems like ketamine is becoming more and more popular. And we talked about this the other day, that it could be, it used to be in the 80s, it was a popular party drug that people were abusing. It's also used by vets for animals. And it's originally meant as an anesthetic. So nowadays they're using it as a treatment for depression and anxiety. And that's what Matthew was using it for. And a lot of people swear by the therapy, but we've kind of learned a little more information today. Basically, this ketamine therapy that he was getting, it's supposed to be, in a monitored setting with the doctor. And they're really like, well, how is he getting this medication at home? And I did some looking into it today, and it seems like there's a lot of these online pharmacies, I guess, that are popping up that are selling this now, and they're selling it through the mail. And we have some suggestions that he could have possibly been doctor shopping as well.
Doctor shopping. What is doctor shopping, Magnolia?
Well, it's, if you're on a medication, like let's say Percocet, for example, you get a prescription for Percocet because you broke your arm or whatever. Well, it's a very addictive drug, and usually people can become addicted within a couple weeks, really, especially if your system's not used to it. And some people start to take more and more of it, and then you end up having withdrawal symptoms if you don't take more. So, but the laws are the laws as far as what doctors can prescribe and what time period. So you might get 30 pills for 30 days. Well, if you go through those 30 pills in 10 days, your doctor's not going to give you more. They're going to say, well, you need to wait the 30 days. Unless you have a doctor that just hands it out like candy, and that's a whole other story. But, generally speaking, they're not supposed to just keep giving it to you like that. So if you run into a doctor who says that, and you're an addict, you're going to go find another doctor that will do it. And so I guess the suggestion is now, we'll play a clip from Nancy Grace too, where she spoke about this. It seems as though he had maybe a network of doctors that were giving him different things. So they're looking into these doctors. And then Brooke Mueller in particular, she seems to have information about where he could have gotten it from. So we have this article, if you want to go into this now, about
Yeah, go
Brooke.
ahead. Which one are we talking about? The Brooke Mueller?
Yeah.
Shoot it.
So several articles came out today. The one we're looking at is from Radar Online. And it says a celebrity is tied to the case and may provide new leads after Brooke Mueller is questioned by cops. So they're saying a female celebrity friend of Matthew Perry is suspected of involvement in his death, and yet another shocking twist to the case. Charlie Sheen's ex-wife, Brooke Mueller, was previously questioned by authorities in conjunction with Perry's fatal dose of ketamine on October 28th. The fatal dose was sent to Perry via U.S. Post from drug dealers who he was introduced to online. So they're speaking with Brooke because she may have information about who it was. She could have even been the one who connected him with that source.
Which would be a crime if she connected, him with a particular doctor or wherever online. That's she could be in trouble, correct?
Potentially. And I've read today that she's actually been questioned multiple times. She has not been charged with anything, but they did seize her phone in the course of this. So,
that's a big deal.
Her phone and her laptop. And she was apparently living in a sober living facility. And that's where they visited her a few times to speak with her. And so they got her phone and her laptop. And, they're looking into this to see, did she introduce him to someone who was giving these drugs to him? Or does she know who it could have been if it wasn't her? So I think that Brooke has a lot of information that's valuable to the investigation. That much is clear. And, they have her phone and laptop. So we'll see if any charges come of that. I don't know.
Well,
if they will.
I mean, she could be listed if it's an indictment federally, which I feel USPS mail fraud. I feel like a mail fraud statute. There could very well be co-defendants, and it could be some sort of conspiracy, and her name could be on these documents if an indictment comes down.
It could be, yeah. And also, yeah, just because she hasn't been charged yet doesn't really mean too much, right? So we usually don't know who's getting charged until the investigation is actually complete and the charges happen. So we'll be watching.
There's a lot of publications saying that she's been questioned. So I don't think this is fake news. It's somehow she probably went and talked to people and said, "Hey, look, the postal inspectors were here, FBI, whoever the agency, maybe the Los Angeles County sheriffs, detectives, somebody, going to her, asking her about these things, and word gets out."
Right. And yeah, so they said that she was the first celebrity to be linked to Perry's death, and she's been allegedly questioned by police multiple times. So they're looking for things like text messages that might say, how can I get more ketamine? Do you know anyone who can get this for me? What, things like that. So they'll be looking for those types of questions. And he, also at the end of this article, it just points out that he had met her during one of his 15 rehab stints. So he was in and out of rehab 15 times over the last 30 years or so.
Yeah, but didn't they report, like, he was saying prior to his death he was 19 months sober? I kept seeing 19 months sober.
Yes, I think the way he characterized it, and he wrote a book. He did a book tour and he wrote a book about this, and he wrote about helping other addicts over the years. And I think for him, when he says sober, what he means really is that maybe he wasn't drinking alcohol for this amount of time, and maybe he didn't consider prescribed ketamine as, a function of being an addict. Maybe he looked at it more of the doctor's giving this to me, or I'm getting this from the doctor. So it's hard to
Which
know.
doctor,
It
though?
was in his
Which doctor? Is it a
mind.
doctor from out of state? Is it a doctor he just got online to do it? Because that might be an issue too. And there's
Yeah.
legality reasons for that. Like you can't, they're saying some things you can do. Like you can't just get a doctor from an out of state to write you a script, can you? I don't think so.
Well, I mean, you can if you go to the doctor in another state for whatever reason. I traveled for my job all the time, and I used to have to go to doctors sometimes in cities where I didn't live, and they certainly gave me prescriptions. So I don't know if it's
The reason why I say
he
is I
went to
believe that.
another doctor, maybe they would give him a prescription, maybe not. But I don't think that I think that these charges look like they're headed towards the mail fraud route, the online purchases, and then potentially doctor shopping, probably in California.
But it's safe to say that there's probably going to be a doctor or two or three listed in a criminal complaint.
It looks that way. It looks that way just based on everything that we know so far. We can play the Nancy Grace clip. I think she had a doctor come on in her segment. If you want to play that.
Yeah, sure. Let's go. Let's rock with Nancy
Yeah.
Grace. We love the great
Remember,
Nancy
Friends
Grace.
was huge. I was in law school and never got to watch TV, but everybody else watched it and loved him. And when I think about him with that big smile, and listen to this, the body is identified by toe tags and is that of an unembalmed, refrigerated adult male. It just seems so sad to me that he affected and touched so many people's lives, and now he's identified by a toe tag. Okay, what do we know about the criminal investigation? Is there a crime? Was he attending rogue clinics that gave him too much ketamine, gave him access to too much ketamine? Did he doctor shop? Did doctors have a duty to find out whom else he was seeing? Was he going to different pharmacies to get ketamine and other drugs? Or did he have a drug supplier? Listen.
The decision to file charges or not in the death of Matthew Perry rests in the U.S. Attorney's Office. Some experts point to the involvement of the California branch of the Drug Enforcement Agency that federal authorities might be looking at distribution of a controlled substance resulting in death or conspiracy to distribute a controlled substance resulting in death charges. These types of charges are used to charge drug dealers, but can be used for pill mills and doctors who overprescribe narcotics without seeing patients.
And friends that continually give you a pipeline to drugs. When you think of a drug dealer, Wendy Patrick, California prosecutor, when you think of a drug dealer, you automatically think of, here's a good stereotype of somebody sitting in a big mansion with Rottweilers guarding the front door and, a big moat around their mansion so you can't get to him, and armed guards, maybe with a lot of gold chains. Yeah, it's not like that. It's not like that at all. The supplier could be your, and I'm definitely air quoting here, best friend, Wendy Patrick.
Great point, Nancy, because if we were to confine our investigation to stereotypes, we would no doubt never find the suspects. And that's one of the things that makes drug abuse so difficult and so challenging, specifically because drug dealers come in all shapes and sizes, and even that terminology can be misleading. You have cases where you have an addict sharing their pills with somebody that perhaps also has an addiction. You have people having legitimate prescriptions that they sell themselves. So there is no prototypical drug dealer that you need to look at. Rather, sometimes suspects are right under the noses of investigators that really broaden the search particularly in a case like this where we're not talking about crack cocaine. We're talking about a drug that is regularly, in talk about air quotes, at least in some circles, and for depression, prescribed legitimately by physicians. Now, the onus becomes the physician can only make a smart prescribing decision under the physician's creed of do no harm if they know whether or not that patient is also receiving prescriptions from other places. Are they prone to addiction? Do they have a history of drug or alcohol abuse? So all those factors go into the prescribing decision, which itself can be complicated by there will be no record of, in addition to what you get legitimately, whether or not somebody is receiving drugs from associates, from friends, or from so-called dealers on the street.
So what's your take?
Actor Matthew Perry dead. A tragic ketamine overdose and hot tub drowning. Who gave Perry the lethal drugs?
Okay, right now we know that Brooke Mueller was once romantically involved with Perry and that they were still in touch at the time of his death. But we didn't know this. Listen.
Brooke Mueller has retained a lawyer for help in navigating the multiple meetings she's having with law enforcement, and she's remaining tight-lipped about the situation. An insider tells In Touch, it's tough to say or know exactly what her role is in Matthew Perry's death, but Mueller is adamant she has nothing to do with it.
Dun, dun, dun. Brooke Mueller. Brooke Mueller. Was she romantically involved with Mr. Perry? Your volume, you gotta hit your volume.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, that's what they're saying. So I think that they just kept in touch over the years, and they seem to know each other because of the shared addiction and probably supported each other at times. So, Matthew Perry seemed to be really good at having long-lasting relationships. If you look at his history, I mean, when he passed away, you see everyone coming out and saying how much they love and care for him. He stayed in touch for the longest time with the Friends cast, the rest of the cast, and they all consider him like family. So I think that that's just kind of how he was in his life and his relationships. He formed deep bonds with people. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad that she's cooperating and telling the authorities what she knows, because if she's not involved, she could certainly help them figure out who is.
But what if, like you just said, long-lasting relationships? What about if we have a dun 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 bombshell here and someone he was connected with from one of the Friends cast, one of the Friends cast members, or something that is involved with this that we don't know? And that's not out of the realm to say that.
Well, anything's possible, I suppose.
I know you're probably like, what? But think about this, folks, because, like Nancy said, we had, it could be just a regular friend. It could just be somebody that, not like a doctor or anybody like that, that it would be able to normally handle that ketamine, but it could have been just a friend that passed it off to him.
Yeah, well, I think it's gonna be people that were in his daily inner circle. And because remember when this happened, you pointed out earlier, he had been saying he was sober for all this time. For how long was it? 19 months or something?
19 months, that's what they said.
Right. And so
months.
That is what he portrayed. That's what he told everyone. That's what his book was about. He literally did a book tour talking about that. So when he passed away, most people that kind of knew him were stunned, because everyone was like, but I thought he was sober. What happened here? So I think that the Friends cast and people like that maybe he wasn't in communication with on a daily basis, or they weren't literally in his life day to day, minute by minute type of thing, maybe don't know, but these people might.
What about this guy here that they're claiming he was the person there? He was the assistant there. His name is Kenny.
Yes, Kenny Iwamasa. It says he had been working for Matthew Perry for over 25 years and was living in the mansion at the time of his death.
What's up with that? What does Kenny have to say about the situation? Has he been questioned? Has authorities talked to him? Could he be a suspect?
Well, it's being reported that he's the one who discovered Matthew Perry's body. Now, remember, I kind of touched on this the other day, but remember in the beginning, people were like, well, who was there with him and who was his assistant and who found him? And they said that he was found by his assistant, and everyone assumed that it was this woman named Briana Brancato, who he was pictured with. And I believe that he wrote a tribute to her in his memoir. So most people initially believed it was Briana, only to find out that she was his former assistant. So the person who actually was living there as his assistant was this guy, Kenny Iwamasa. He's the one that found him. Yes.
So it remains to be seen, whether he gets on the list or what. I'm just curious at who's going to be on this and whose names drops, because I also think that names, you could say unidentified quote conspirators or unidentified people might be listed in this indictment, and it might shock us all. I mean, literally, it could be Hollywood names involved. This could be a big giant Hollywood pill mill, distributed to each Hollywood actor type of deal. You know what I mean? They all have a connection in some way. It very well might be like that. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting by reading up on this. We'll see, right?
Yes. Now, to my knowledge, I don't know that Kenny has really spoken out at all. I don't remember that ever happening. So, but in the reports, they say that Matthew and Kenny were that house where he was found in. It was under renovation for a really long time, and they were staying somewhere else, and they had just returned to that house about a month before Matthew was found dead. So they had really just been back in that house recently, and this happened.
Speaking of the house, they're trying to say the house was $50,000 a month rent.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's reports that just came out in the last 24 hours saying that Perry's net worth at the time, he only had $1.5 million left.
Yeah. Well, right. So we have
And,
those.
He's made so much money on the Friends. He was making $1 million an episode.
So, and we had from the Daily Mail, they posted yesterday. It seems like all the media keeps posting articles at the same time on this. But they pointed out that when he died, he had about $1.5 million. And he owned no property, but he did have a $120 million trust fund with his family and his ex-girlfriend, Rachel Dunn, as beneficiaries. So he had a $120 million trust fund. Now, they're saying that his personal property was valued at a little over $1 million. So we're talking like assets type of thing. He didn't have real estate, but he made a ton of money from the show Friends. And so the trust, it looks like he was smart enough to put a lot of that money in a trust that was worth $120 million. So
who gets that trust right now? Somebody got that trust?
It's a trust with his family and ex-girlfriend Rachel Dunn as beneficiaries, it says. And this was
Do they get that all in one lump sum, or how does that work with trust?
It says the beneficiaries are listed as his father, John Perry, mother, Suzanne Morrison, half-sister, Caitlin Morrison, and his ex-girlfriend, Rachel Dunn, who he dated from 2003 to 2005, which is interesting. That's 20 years ago that she would still be part of that. But that's what it says. So,
do they get that all in one lump sum?
Oh, it's a trust fund. So I'm sure there's many rules involved with how they would get that money. So
have you heard anything about life insurance policies on them?
No, I haven't. But when we're talking about his assets, I remember earlier you were like, well, how does he only have 1.5 million in the bank, or personal assets? But again, I mean, people have to remember that he spent the last 30 years being an addict. He was in and out of rehabs. Those rehabs are very, very expensive, and we know that he went to rehab like 15 times over the years, and not to mention the money that he would have spent on his addiction too. So it's an expensive lifestyle.
Wow.
But
Yeah. I mean, going to a rehab for those celebrities, where they go to like a Malibu, they go to like a 5-star hotel rehabs, right? Like 25,000 a day or something crazy. I've read.
yeah, so they usually go to places that are pretty pricey, and a rehab stint is anywhere from like a month. It could be even 6 months, I guess. So it just depends how long they stay. I think it's more of like a spa where they're kind of not really,
And
they
probably
have
most.
total privacy. Yeah, Betty Ford Clinic is one. I forget the one. There's one in Malibu that a bunch of people go to.
That's what I was saying, Malibu. But it's probably safe to assume too, at rehabs, people are probably using at rehabs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Somebody said it's amazing he didn't end up on the streets. Well, yeah. I mean, it's and honestly, if he wasn't the celebrity that he was, with all the money from Friends and the other shows and movies that he did, he probably would have been someone that ended up on the streets, So that's what happens to most addicts, I think, because most addicts are not incredibly wealthy, like these celebrities are. So yeah, he probably would have ended up on the street. But
Yeah, we're paying attention to this case because it's basically kind of like when somebody goes to trial, you're on verdict watch. We're technically at this point on indictment watch.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's circulating more and more in the media, and it seems
Just
like
in the last 72 hours, it's just really ramped up, like it's coming. Now, these media people, Los Angeles, Central District of California, right? U.S. District Court, these areas have certain days grand juries meet to indict. So, who knows? I mean, tomorrow's 4th of July, nothing's going to happen tomorrow. But they might have well, you never know. But I never heard of anyone getting indicted on 4th of July. But tomorrow's what, Thursday? Tomorrow's Thursday. They might, in the Central District of California, indict on Fridays. On Fridays, they vote to indict, for people's cases in front of grand jury. So it seems like the way the media is reporting and the way we're seeing it about people spoken to, I would say that a grand jury has already convened on this matter.
I would imagine, and that's probably how people are kind of finding out that something's coming. There may be reports, and I think that Radar Online, anyway, they seem like they had some sources inside the police department, and that's how they're getting a lot of this information. So they're kind of in the know. It seems like,
Yeah,
they're the ones that posted. I saw this article that they posted. What was this? A few days ago. And they said the ketamine dose that killed Matthew Perry was purchased online. And they've spoken to sources that said they're basically hunting for Matthew Perry's killer. That's the way their source phrased it. So they seem to have.
But that would be easy to trace, right? If you buy it online, you're going to have to do an electronic paper trail, right? He's going to have to buy it he's going to either have to pay with PayPal, credit card, Cash App, Venmo, something to buy these online, right? Electronic purchase, right? Bitcoin.
Yeah,
I don't know.
it would be. I think the fact that if it was bought online, I think that fact would make it a lot easier to investigate actually than it would be if he had just bought it on the street, because you do have a paper trail. Maybe that's why it's only taking a couple of months, because everything you do online is pretty much forever. So we'll see where it goes though.
And Brooke, the fact that her electronics were taken from her, that's scary too. Because you gotta really need something to have your electronics taken. You can't just come and take it. They have to have some sort of a warrant, subpoena, to get those records. And when someone has their electronic devices, when someone's electronic devices are taken, that's a bad sign. It means to me, you were part of an investigation, target, or very, very close to the situation.
Yeah, and they'll take that phone and they'll pull all the metadata, they'll do all the reports on it, and it'll all be there. Yeah, Norma said it should all be traceable. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to be covering it, ladies and gentlemen. We just wanted to kind of fill you in on some new information. They're saying Brooke Mueller's name is dropping, and they're saying, they're hunting for the killer, and charges more or less are imminent. So maybe it drops Friday, doubt tomorrow or next week, or it's coming soon. I believe it's coming soon.
Lisbeth, the devices we're talking about is Brooke Mueller. She's a longtime friend of Matthew Perry. She was the ex-wife of Charlie Sheen. It's her iPhone and laptop that they seized, and they interviewed her several times so far.
Yeah, speaking of Charlie Sheen, I wonder what he thinks about it. What about if his name's dropped? The bomb? Doubt it, but he's a guy that struggled with addiction too.
Well, he's seems like he's kind of stayed quiet the last several years, except for the whole episode we had with Electra Schrock back in December.
By the way, we might interview her. By the way, folks, for people that are interested, we did a story on Electra Schrock, the condo lady in Malibu that assaulted Charlie Sheen. Well, she reached out to us because we made multiple reports about it, and she kind of wants to talk and set the record straight. She's invited us to where? Where'd she invite us to?
Malibu.
Yeah, she invited us to her area so she could set the record straight, because she says she did not assault Charlie Sheen, and she says there's a lot of false accusations out there, and she wasn't too kind about our reporting, but she does want to talk and set the record straight. So we might get her on very, very soon.
Yeah, it's that was just such a random case, and we made 10 videos on that case, and then the last we heard, she was in jail, and we were like, is she gonna get out of jail? Is she gonna get bail? And then we got busy with other stuff, border coverage, things like that, and I think we just kind of didn't really think about it again. and then she just popped up in the email.
She just popped up in her email. She just slid into our emails and was identifying her. It's her. I mean, she was sending some documents and pictures and stuff. It's her. We'll get her on. We'll hear what she has to say about Charlie Sheen. She's claiming she's innocent. I don't know what happened out with the court proceedings and stuff. Maybe they dropped the case.
Well, I think she actually might have taken some sort of a plea deal, because in one of the emails she said that she's working on trying to get her plea reversed or something like that. So I don't really know what happened. We'll have to figure that out. But yeah, she's saying that she didn't do anything wrong, and Charlie Sheen is just an attention seeker.
Yes. Well, I appreciate you coming on with me, and we're talking a little bit of Matthew Perry. A couple of these cases we're paying attention to. Oh, by the way, it's breaking news. We are next week. Where are we going?
Santa Fe.
Yes, we're going to Santa Fe, New Mexico, ladies and gentlemen. We are covering the Alec Baldwin trial. We decided to go for it and go check it out. We want to see, I'm interested in seeing, like you said, there's a family of Baldwins that might show up, and we're interested in seeing who comes and who shows, and we want to see what a celebrity trial looks like. Santa Fe, right north of Albuquerque in the mountains, and we're gonna be there. We're not gonna be there for jury selection. We'll be arriving in Santa Fe next weekend.
So we'll be there for that Monday after jury selection.
15.
And I think I think who doesn't show up will be just as interesting as who does show up. So that's what I'm looking forward to, because I want to know if Daniel Baldwin and what's the other Stephen Baldwin, and Haley Bieber is his niece, I believe, too. So it'll be interesting to see who all comes.
His daughter, Ireland.
I don't know. He's got like 7 kids.
Usually sometimes when defendants go to court, as you know, kind of you want to go to the jury and show that you got a support system.
Yeah.
So your family shows up and sits behind you, and the jury sees that. You can bringing family to a trial can have an impact. I mean, it makes you look like you have a tight group around you that support you and love you and feel you're innocent of the crime you're accused of. So we'll see who shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we'll be doing some live streaming all over the place, and so stay tuned for that. That will be interesting.
Yep, it will be.
All right, folks. JLR investigates. Magnolia investigates. Magnolia. First time she came live on this channel. But we go live more often on her channel. We try to do every Saturday night. So sub to her channel. Saturday nights we do our recaps on true crime. We just talk. Let everyone know what we're up to. We got a short trip coming up in a couple days. We just got to do a real quick trip, but we'll be live at some crime scenes in the next couple days, particularly Saturday. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. We'll do some fun stuff this weekend and see what we can put together. And then we'll be ready to go to Santa Fe after that.
Sounds like a plan. All right, thanks, everyone. JLR Investigates. You guys have a good day.
All right, have a good night.
Goodbye.